You know, one of the great things about the old days was, and I want to say, like, I would walk every day to high school until I could drive.
And then I would walk to school too.
Then I would borrow
and
my folks' car.
Younger than you. So, I mean, it's not like people still walk.
I would walk through the snow. And
same.
And the only time I didn't was during the blizzard of 78, where they closed school for like 3 weeks.
Okay.
But the point is that you youngins, you're missing out on some important life lessons. You're out there. Maybe you're making $8 an hour on first of all, minimum wage $7.25. But you're out there. Maybe some of you making $8 an hour. Maybe some of you making $10 an hour. God forbid, some of you making $14, $15 an hour working at fast food. You're missing out. Here is Laura Boebert on with Blaze TV's Elijah Schaefer explaining why. That's not Laura Boebert.
Lauren,
whatever. We're not going to get hung up on that. Here she is.
Started working at McDonald's when I was 15. And, McDonald's, they had a minimum wage that was low enough to invest in a 15-year-old like me at that time. And so we're kind of doing away with that as well right now. So how many youth are going to be robbed of that experience to start working? And
no, is that it? That's the clip?
I have more audio up from the audio only because I was in podcast form. This was paywalled, but do we want to hear?
Yeah,
more?
Let's hear a little bit more of the audio.
I'll just say, Lauren Boebert in food service is not a place you want to read before lunch.
All right, continue.
And we literally screw over the next generation. Am I over-exaggerating? Am I an alarmist, or is that really what is going on there?
So if we continue down this path, absolutely, you are correct, and you're not an alarmist. You're not far off at all. But I do believe that we're going to turn this back around. I think that there are enough people who are stepping up to run for these positions who aren't elitists, who don't think that they're smarter than the average American citizen. I mean, we have all these people who went to Ivy League schools, and then they get to Congress and they think that there's something. I wish that more members of Congress had the life experiences that I've had. I was raised in a Democrat household under failed policies. I lived on welfare. I stood in line for government cheese and bread. I started working at McDonald's when I was 15. And, McDonald's, they had a minimum wage that was low enough to invest in a 15-year-old like me at that time. And so we're kind of doing away with that as well right now. So how many youth are going to be robbed of that experience to start working in life? And, and so I started my family. It started businesses with a GED, by the way. and these members of Congress, they think that they're so elite. And I just wish they had these same life experiences, knowing what it's like to sign the front of a paycheck, not just the back of a paycheck.
Doesn't the conservative movement besmirch Alexandria Ocasio Cortez for being a bartender? I was pretty sure that was a derisive way that they spoke about her.
I would be surprised if Lauren Boebert didn't do that.
And AOC did not, to my knowledge, give anybody some sort of poisoning through her bartending skills.
She did not cause a mass diarrhea outbreak, including reports of bloody stool to at least 80 people.
Was that Lauren Boebert's
Shooters?
That was Shooters Bar and Grill. Yeah, that was Lauren Boebert. That document is public.
She should. Someone should tell her about UPenn and the prep schools that Donald Trump attended.
Right. Yeah.
He's just one of us. But the best part is also there was a guy, I can't remember. He played coach on
Craig.
Yes. I think it was Craig. I think it was Craig Nelson.
Craig T. Nelson. Yeah.
I remember a famous tweet of his where it's like, I was on welfare and I never got a government handout to be where I'm at. And it was like, wait, hey dude, yes, government stepped in to help you when your family couldn't provide for you. Those failed policies provided a foundation so that you could go on to do that. And the idea that McDonald's was investing in a teenager to pay them, first of all, McDonald's didn't have its own minimum wage. It had a minimum wage set by the government. And the problem that you had, and I imagine, is pretty damn close to the minimum wage that exists today. That $7.25 has been around for
So long.
Like almost 2 decades.
That was
right?
when I worked at McDonald's. It was $7.25.
I mean, it's quite possible the minimum wage she worked at is the exact same minimum wage, federally speaking, that exists today.
And I'm sure that she's been up in arms about inflation, and yet we don't hear anything about how like the minimum wage hasn't kept up with the inflation of the dollar.
And
from her.
It wasn't even a tweet from Craig T. Nelson. He said it on TV. The idea that somehow fast food restaurants stop investing in young people is, first off, like, they need a worker. It's not what's going on in that fast food restaurant. It requires anything other than, some measure of effort and, a slight ability to learn the mechanisms there. I've worked in restaurants. It takes a couple of days to get used to it, and then you feel confident. But like this concept that like teenagers, they're not investing in teenagers. We have a lot of job openings right now, and
because no one can afford to pay that wage.
Nobody can afford to pay that wage. They're just trying to get people who they want to invest more in young people, but they can't.
And
so who are they? Wait, who's working these? The problem that we have is that we don't have enough good jobs so that people who are trying to support a family or a little bit older don't have to work at a fast food restaurant. They can get a better job than that.
And it's such naivete that like they're investing in their workers as opposed to using them for their labor.
Yeah, I mean, I worked at McDonald's throughout high school, 2 years. It was not all like high school kids just looking for a job to go to college. There were actually people that were dependent on those jobs. And I would just say like those people deserve a higher wage, and also any teenagers that need to work there. But where we need teenagers is in schools. And this idea that like the place where we need teenagers is working a fry station is it's elitist.
And Matt, what did you learn from your experience at McDonald's?
I learned about like when I used to close pretty much every night, a few other people, and I used to think like I used to do rough calculations of how much food I'm making and we're all making and how much money that brings in and how much I'm actually getting paid, which is like slightly above that minimum wage, like maybe it was $8. And yeah, I was basically in charge of an entire kitchen for like 5 hours a night.
All right. So somebody says Lauren Boebert was 15 in 2002 when the minimum wage was $5.15. And let's look up what it is worth today. So the value of $5 from 2002 to 2022, it's about $8.23 today. So in fact, Lauren Boebert got more money, more buying power in 2002 than the 15-year-old working at McDonald's today getting paid $7.25.
What could she even learn from that?
And also just the mythologizing of like the kid that has to work at McDonald's in high school to pay for things. And sure, jobs that you get in high school, like I wish this wasn't the case, but I understand a lot of kids have to do that. Like it's a way to undercut the overwhelming reality of who is working at these jobs and undercut calls for higher minimum wages, a living wage for the people who are overwhelmingly working these service jobs. It's not the kid going after school, working, a few days a week to make money. That does happen, but that's not who this is mostly for. And as Matt said, pay those kids a living wage too. Yep. Pay those kids minimum wage. Yeah, fine.
You talk about inflation. College price inflation should be the main number you look at because that's the theory of who's going there to collect those jobs. And it's a joke to think that you could put yourself through any college based on where McDonald's is paying people now.
All right. Artie says, Sam, could you stop rubbing your fat, self-aggrandizing gums and take phone calls, please? You're right. We're going to take...
Artie's the viewer that hates us and always insults us. So.
Well, Artie's right in this instance.
Okay.
We're going to do a couple of quick phone calls.